I'm Michael C., host of the Competitive Rifle Podcast on the Firearms Radio Network. This is going to be a dual episode we're going to try and do. It's going to be a podcast and a video for the YouTube. What I'm going to be talking about is what is a competitive rifle? Specifically, what is a competitive rifle in terms of the civilian marksmanship program and the NRA service rifle category. The first thing we're starting out with is your standard issue M1 Garand 30-06, fed through a clip. This is a stock issue with 1 minute sights on here. Shoots a 30-06 round through a 8-round clip. These are accurate weapons. I've seen them shoot accurate out to 1,000 yards. Now with the civilian marksmanship program, remember, the civilian marksmanship program was founded because the Army was finding it was getting recruits that didn't quite have the marksmanship skills that they should have. So they went to Congress, developed the civilian marksmanship program, which was originally Director of Civilian Marksmanship, which was charged with teaching civilians how to use service rifles. It actually started out with a 1903 and 03A3 Springfield rifles, the bolt action ones. Those are no longer legal in CMP competitions, although the CMP and the NRA have matches specifically for those rifles. But if you want to show up, shoot a CMP or NRA in the service rifle, this is one of the rifles that you can use, and it's one of the first ones that you can use. And if you want to purchase one of these, the best place to purchase them is through the Civilian Marksmanship Program sales site. But there's a caveat. What you have to do is you have to belong to a club that is a member of the Civilian Marksmanship Program, and you have to shoot a match. Then you'll get all the paperwork to buy one. Off the top of my head, I believe these are running around $1,000. Now, moving up from this for years, these Garands were shot with much success at Camp Perry and regional matches and service matches, and in a big match called World War II. They worked very, very well. These are fun weapons to shoot. Even though they're a 30-06, I don't think that they kick that much. The next evolution that you have is this. This is a match grade Garand. This is actually a Navy, what's called a Mark II Mod 1. It's a 308. It's the Garand, but it's been rebarreled to a 308. The stock's been bedded. This particular one, because of the grade, has half-minute sights on it, a hooded sight, same type of sights that you would find on a M1A or an M14. These are very, very accurate rifles. There are some national records that have been set with these rifles that still stand today. These are accurate out to 1,000 yards. And you really can't get these through the CMP anymore. Originals are very, 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 very hard to find anymore. People make duplicates, and the problem is some are made better than others. There was a 3 or 4 year drought, where these weren't even issued by the services anymore for political reasons, but now that's changed and those are being released. But these are fun weapons to shoot, very accurate. One thing I like about this particular Garand that I have, which I've used in matches, and it's gotten a few bumps and scratches, is when you shoot standing with it, you can get your palm right there underneath it. Hold that rifle, and it holds very, very still. And it's a lot of fun shooting these things in the rapid fire stages when you start hearing those clips ejecting. Now, if you should by chance, let me point out one thing on these also. If you should by chance get one of these match grade Garands, especially if they were made by Don McCoy or anybody at the Navy shop that was in San Diego, don't grab them by the top handguards. Because to accurize them, what they did, they went in underneath the wood and carved out the wood. The wood underneath here is very hollow, and many of them have a thin sheet of metal right underneath there. So if you were to grab it real hard, you're going to disturb all that. Another thing, if you get one of these, a match grade Garand or one of the Navy Mark II Garands, don't ever take it out of the stock. You'll ruin it. These were seated in such a way that they go in and they stay in. And there's really no need ever to take them out. You can easily shoot 10,000 rounds through one of these weapons. They were built that well. All you'll have to do, just clean it and lube it, and you're good to go. The next evolution you have is the next service rifle that the US adopted, which was the M14. This is the civilian version in M1A. This particular one is a Springfield National Match. This one has a heavy barrel with a 1 in 10 twist, 22 inches, which is really nice because you get a long sight radius, especially if you're like me and you're starting to get older and you're having a problem seeing the front sight. Well, a longer sight radius is going to help. It's also going to increase your accuracy because of the distance between the front sight and the rear sight. These have half-minute sights. This is bedded into the receiver. Doesn't have a sling. Obviously, you'd want a sling. Same care on these weapons. Try not to grab it by the handguard, because these handguards on a national match, a truly national match made weapon, best place to get these is Springfield Armory, is these are glued in. And the gas systems on these are what's called a unified gas system. Up here, this whole gas block is the gas block, and the piece here that connects your upper handguard and lower handguard together has been welded. And the ports on here have been specifically fitted for the gas block to fit into the match barrel. Again, very accurate. I've shot these before in 1,000-yard matches, shot in the high 90s with them. Very accurate weapon. And these take a magazine for your reloading. And remember, in service rifle, whether it's a civilian marksmanship program or an NRA service rifle match, you got to load 2 and then 8. So let's move on to what we have next. We have the venerable AR-15, and I've got my scope protectors on there. This particular rifle was built, the upper was built by White Oak Arms, and it's got a 1 in 7 barrel on here, heavy barrel. The front sight post on these, might be able to see it, there's screws on here so you can adjust, I won't point it at you, so you can adjust that front sight post so that when you set your mechanical 0 in the rear, you have a true mechanical 0. Take some time to do, be patient doing that, and then once you get the screws set, I like the White Oak Arms one because there's a hole right here in the bottom you don't use for the adjustment left and right. And once you get it set, you can just screw that screw in there at the bottom, and it'll hold everything set while you screw in on the sides. Other adjustable front sights I used one from JP Enterprises, but both of the screws on that come in from the side. So as soon as you loosen one up to set it back in, you're loosening up the other side. This, I think, is a much better system. What you'll also notice on these rifles is that the floating tube, remember all those nice floating tubes that you have now in your tactical rifles? Well, that all came from high power matches with these ARs. This is a tube, it's a solid tube running underneath the front here, securing your sling swivel here so that the barrel can float freely. Really, really improves accuracy. Working on down, the way here, the receiver was matched to the upper, and I'll run up the sights here. Again, what White Oak Arms does, and it's probably the best one I think on the market, is you have a pinned rear sight. If you look at ARs that aren't pinned, the rear sight will move back and forth. And unless you do something like what Frank White does at Compass Lake, Frank makes his made to 0 tolerances, meaning all these pieces that are made, there's some sort of tolerance in there, whether it's 5/1000 of an inch or 10/1000 of an inch. There's always some play made in there because these weapons, remember, originally were made to be reliable, not necessarily accurate, but because Frank keeps his in a standard configuration, but he makes them to 0 runout, zero specifications. They're very accurate. John and other makers, John there at White Oak Arms, by pinning this, make sure that that rear sight stays set. This particular one has half-minute sights. These are true half-minute sights. I've done ladder tests on them and checked them, and they work. The rifle also has a Geisley National Match Service model 2-stage trigger, which is great because that trigger, totally adjustable for your over travel, pre-travel, your first stage, your second stage. Best service rifle trigger you can get on the market, period. And you can't see it in here, but I replaced the bumper spring, the standard bumper spring, with a Superior Shooting Products flat wire spring. And it's the same spring for carbines, for service rifle. It fits in there, they last longer, they maintain the same, for lack of a better term, pressure, resiliency, elasticity throughout the cycle of the spring. I was at a match, how I found these, I was at a match and I was having jams during the rapid fire stages, and my rifle wasn't cycling properly. A gentleman was there, said it's probably your bumper spring, it wore out, and he had one of those flat wire springs. He let me use it, I dropped it in here. The weapon worked flawlessly. From that point on, all my ARs get that flat wire spring in there. Whether it's my work rifles, whether it's my competition rifles, home defense rifles, they all get it because that works. One other thing also did on this rifle is, you'll see here in the back, there's some blue stuff here. That's actually a car gasket, PTX sealant that I made it to go underneath here, so that when I'm shooting, especially in the rapid fire, I don't get any of those occasional puffs of gas coming up out of here. We'll do an episode explaining how we do that. It's very simple. And I'm getting out of breath holding this thing because this rifle, if you see, it balances. This rifle weighs 15 pounds. This rifle currently meets all the requirements for both NRA and civilian marksmanship program matches, including the rear sight that's on here. It's a hooded rear sight with adjustable apertures that can go in here depending on the lighting conditions or the age of my eyes, or I've even noticed some different ranges that I go to, I need different apertures in there to get that crisp front sight post picture that I want. And I also need a correct size to see the target numbers, which we're going to move on to the next iteration of service rifles. So this one's 15 pounds. It's heavy. You put it up and hold it, especially for standing. It stays put. When you're shooting rapid fires, it stays put. As long as you're doing your job with your sight alignment, your trigger squeeze, your follow through, This rifle will, can, and has, and I hope to be able to do it in the future, shoot sub-MOA groups up to and including at 600 yards.